vaporized. He vaporized off the bases here. I would love to know.
Yeah, good guy.
Exactly. Even if it wasn't a sports sport, I would love to know if he's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned about.
We used to have a lot of fun in March Madness. Like handball this on the road,
Sure.
you know?
I texted Old Muscle all the time.
Yeah.
And the person finally was like, stop. Oh, the Burpee ran. I talked to him like a week ago. Really? Burpee? Oh, man. Sharing all the connections.
I think he does live in St. Louis, though.
For a guy who was all about social media while he was here, he's got a vapor.
Get there. Sorry. Well, first of all, it's great to see everybody. It's always good to be back game week. So fired up. We're playing at home and got to announce a sellout, but it's good to be back in front of our fans. We need you on Saturday. It's a huge game, and there's no doubt that it makes a huge difference. I mean, just playing 2 games on the road and being at home, our fans are so loud, so incredible, so engaged, and so we need that again. Want to do the scout team players of the week from Arizona was Tyson Turner. The defense votes on those guys, and then Jamari Davis for the scout team defense going against the offense. Know this team. We're fixed to play really well. I have a great respect for Dave Aranda. I think he's one of the best defensive coaches I've ever been around. I learned a lot from him. You can tell that he is calling the defense. I think there's a huge improvement from the last couple years, and with him getting involved, you see a big difference. And then really his whole staff. I mean, I know the majority of them. There's less and less players that I know, but know a lot of the players, and two of them that are playing a high level. I was fortunate enough to recruit and also coach as their position coach, and Matt Jones and Garmin Randolph. Offensively they're impressive. Sawyer's really impressive. He is, you go to the BYU game and he keeps them in the game. Not only keeps them in the game, but they're coming down. They get down, I think 21-0, and he brings them back, and they have the opportunity to throw the ball in the end zone to win that game. He's playing at a really high level. You go to the week before that, he's the guy that really puts them in a position to beat Colorado. That was an unfortunate loss. You're throwing the ball in the end zone, and they give up the Hail Mary to go into overtime. But he's the reason that they got to that point, on the offense side of the ball. They've got 3 big outside receivers that, challenge your corners. Josh Cameron is playing really well in the red zone. He's a great story. He's a walk-on that, earned a scholarship and, is leading their team, I think, in receptions for touchdowns. So really good. And then defensively, I think they're 2 linebackers. Matt, I talked about Matt. They're very good, very active. They've got 2 of the best defensive ends in the conference. Garmin Randolph and Steve Linton, they together have had 8 sacks. A big part of what we need to do on Saturday is stay ahead of the stick, so they can't just pin their ears back and really come after us. But it's going to be a tough game. Number one, because it's the Big 12. And every single week it's. I got to watch a lot of football, and you watch Arizona State beat Utah, and it comes down to the end. You watch West Virginia and Iowa State, a great game. You watch K-State and Colorado. If you stayed up, Big 12 After Dark or whatever they're calling it now. We were a part of it a couple weeks ago. That was a phenomenal game that came down to the end, and that's the Big 12. That's what you're going to get every single week. Exciting football, really well-coached teams, and it's going to be like that this week. You could flip their record really easily, and they could be 4-2, because you look at their last 3 games, they had opportunities to win the game. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm glad we're at home. I'm glad it's homecoming, and I think we're going to have some good weather. I don't know about the rain, but we're going to have some nice weather from the standpoint of it's going to be about 70 degrees probably at kickoff, and so that's going to be good. And just once again, students show up, get there early, and I'll see you at pregame walking around the stadium. With that, I'll open up for questions.
Coach, how do you see the back half of the season with the unpredictability of the Big 12?
Man, we're, you always figure out, hey, this is the motto, and then all of a sudden it's like you're in the game, the season and how this is the motto. Man, our motto right now is just find a way, figure out what kind of game it's going to be, and adjust, adapt throughout the game, play 4 quarters, and find a way to win the game. And that's what it's going to be every single week. You turn around and you talk about this week, and we're playing a really good team that, like I said, could be 4-2. TCU's one of the most they're throwing the ball. They're averaging 330 yards in the air, so we haven't defended the pass well, so that makes you nervous. Iowa State's undefeated. You turn around and, you're going to play Colorado, who's actually throwing the ball more than TCU. And so, man, it's just one of those kind of deals of just find a way to win. That's what we're trying to do. We're going to try to do it again. That comes from really good preparation throughout the week. It also comes from us getting healthy. I know y'all saw the injury report, and, it's good to have a bye week and get some guys back that didn't play. We didn't have 2 really good defensive ends against Arizona, and they're going to be back this week, and Isaiah and Amir. And so, again, just find a way to win.
How has this team rebounded from adversity this year?
Well, last year early in the season, we didn't find ways to win 1-score games, and we're doing just the opposite this year. Their resilience, their belief in each other's, it's absolutely amazing. And then I go back to what we said, in the spring and in the summer. The leadership on this team is pretty impressive. I have not been around a group like Bryce and J-Rod and Taj and Caleb and Barron. They meet every Tuesday with Coach Martin and Bobby, our team chaplain, and go through just different things. And They have a big voice on what the week's going to look like. They have a big voice on what goes earlier in the play call sheet on both sides of the ball and what gets moved down. Have a lot of trust in that, and so I hadn't been around a lot of guys like that, and that's what keeps us going and keeps us pushing through in tight games.
So what are the three things from the offensive line that you've seen the greatest improvement on this year?
Well, we've got to be a lot better than we were against Arizona. You know, we've talked about that a lot. I showed 2 examples yesterday. You know, the frustrating thing, and we didn't get to talk as much about Arizona than after watching film, but the backside of the play, how much we have to strain. You know, if you go and watch the Arizona tape, there is a lot of times that the nose that's slanted away from the play is spinning back, and he's the first guy to hit Taj. You know, or you know, whether it's going to the right or left. We've got to have I think it's pride in that my guy's not going to make the tackle, but I think it's understanding that Taj Brooks can end up anywhere. And so whenever you got a guy like that, it's very important. We're straining, and I'm really proud of them at the point of attack. They get the play started, but the backside. So we've got to get better at that. We're going to see a lot of games out of these guys. Whenever it's passing down, we got to get better at that. But the biggest thing, I think, that where we've improved, and I don't know if I can give you 3 things, but I just think these guys, the physicality that they want to play with in the run game, and their mindset of taking things personal but not getting down and really wanting to work and improve on the things that we got to get better at. I think, you know, you're going to have the same starting 5 for the 3rd week. So I think there'll be improvement there just with the chemistry with those guys starting together.
Go Justin and Jarrett.
Coach, you mentioned Steve Linton. I know it's a familiar face. You guys had a lot of praise for him last fall or last spring as well. It's a team that doesn't they twist a lot. They don't send a lot of pressure. They're able to get home with 4.
Yeah.
I guess what's the biggest challenge for your tackles this week with that kind of guy on the other side?
Yeah, you know, he and Garmin both. I mean, they're both NFL guys. They'll be drafted or they'll be free agents. You know, depends on how they finish the year, you know, where they go. They both got great length. I mean, you're talking about Garmin that's 6'7", so he puts a lot of pressure on you with length. You go back 2 years ago, and I think he lived in our backfield whenever they beat us here in Lubbock. You know, and then you turn around and he's playing for a different team, but he had 3 sacks against Baylor last year, you know, and then he got banged up and, you know, didn't get to play at the end of the year. He's really athletic. He's got a high motor. So it's going to be, number one, we got to stay ahead of the sticks. You know, we've got to stay ahead of the sticks. And I think everybody is, but, man, we're really bad if we get to, like, 2nd and 12 and stuff like that. So first down's got to be good for us. And then we've got to do a good job, and our guys do, but, you know, we've got to add in the tight end and the running backs and, you know, chipping them. And then the last thing is I always talk about whenever you're putting pressure on the quarterback, it's play calling too, you know, and I think Kitley's got a really good plan of hopefully slowing those guys down. And it's I mean, whenever you're just talking about rushing the passer, I thought Arizona's edges were really good. They're very physical in the run game. But when you're just talking about rushing the passer, these are 2 of the better defensive ends in our conference, and we've got to do a good job. Staying ahead of the sticks, hopefully, you know, we'll see what their game plan is, but staying ahead of the sticks keeps one of the 2 off the field. You know, a lot of times when you're in true passing situations, they're both on the field. Whenever you're not, one of them's on the field. And so trying to keep those guys off the field will help.
I'm curious. You mentioned the self-scout last Wednesday. Is there anything that came of that on Sunday?
There is. I will tell you that next week. And I will. You know, it's funny. I thought that I might get that question. And, you know, I want those guys that we're playing against to have to work. I know they have. I know those guys that are breaking down their stuff on that side, and they probably see the same thing we do. But, you know, I don't want to give anything away because we are going to, I think, we'll make some improvements off of that. I thought it was a great meeting yesterday. I thought it was impressive to see guys like Kirk Bryant and Ryan Connery, Trent Vassey, Taylor Young, all those young guys really, you know, say, hey, this is how we would attack you, and this is how we would attack you. And so I'm going to save that, ask that question next week, and I'll give you an answer to give kind of hold some of that for the game plan.
Coach, I'm curious about Devin Cromwell at safety, what he brought to the secondary and what you see. Has he found a home at safety there?
Yeah, he has. We're trending in a good direction with Chappie. Anytime it's questionable, I usually feel like we're in an 80 to plus chance of those guys playing. But Devin's going to play, and that's the thing we kind of talked about a couple weeks ago with him, coming out and saying, hey, Coach, I'll do whatever we need to do. I'll tell you, I was really excited about his physicality. There was a couple that he came up and made some big hits and didn't bring his arms with him, to wrap up. But I thought his physicality, he's got really good speed. He's a vet. I think that's going to help us in the long run because now we could take a little bit off of Chappie. So both of them are going to play whenever we're fully healthy. And then I think he'll keep getting better. The other thing that I thought that he and CJ did well is the communication, which has been something that has hurt us in the passing game, is our lack of communication. But for him to be able to get into some coverages and let CJ play the post, makes a big difference. And so I think, him being comfortable to play man on a slot, him being comfortable to be in the post, him being able to come comfortable to play some of our zone coverages makes a big difference. But the biggest thing that I saw from him is his physicality and ability to tackle in open space.
You mentioned last week about the improved numbers on defense, especially against the run and in the red zone in Big 12 play. What's gone into that? What's allowed the defense to improve in Big 12 play?
I think the two things, like anytime you can improve on the run, you're going to improve in red zone because it's harder to run the ball in. But going back, I think, our guys being able to really if you look, we're really trying to keep the calls where we're not moving as much in the box. I mean, the linebackers have to move based off of formation and everything, but, you hear coaches talk about it all the time. The more you can get your box to have their feet in the ground before the ball snapped and identify gaps. I think the other thing that we've done really well and continue to do, and anytime we've given up a big run is because we haven't done this, is setting the edge of the defense. I mean, it's helped that Charles Esters has come back, but really identifying and setting the edge, to where we've probably played more 9 techniques and 7 techniques than we have a 6 technique. So a more head up, more outside, really giving a definitive edge. That helps everything behind it. That helps your safeties know, hey, he's got the edge, now I can fit my gap versus coming down and being indecisive, like, oh, he's got this gap, well, I got to help him here. And so that's helped a lot. I think our tackling is continuing to improve. And, man, if Jacob Rodriguez can have another game like he did last week and build off of that, I think that's going to be big. I think that's one thing too, man. We could play like – I don't know if we necessarily – I think Jacob Rodriguez was dominant without a doubt. But if you look at our box – I don't know necessarily if we have like somebody that just comes out and dominates the game, where what we've been able to is be able to dominate at times because of our depth. We play so many people and there's not somebody out there playing 90 snaps. We've got guys that are really fresh, so it allows them to play as hard as they could play, whoever that is. Some are better than others, but we're getting the hardest we could play out of that one guy, and so I think that's making the difference in both. And then, in the red zone, I think we've got a really good set of what we know we could call. The guys feel comfortable in those calls, and it shrinks the field a little bit, so there's less space, and that helps us.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Coach, you talked about the Baylor wide receivers. How would you describe the 3 of them? Are they big physical athletes that you're going to have to be able to beat jump balls on? Are they death by 1,000 cuts where they're going to get 3 yards and 3 yards and 3 yards and just constantly move the sticks? How would you describe their group going forward for what you're going to have to defend this week?
Yeah, they're all long. Hal Presley is 6'2", 6'3", does a really good job of catching the fade ball. Keytron is a big physical receiver. That's that's the thing that they've done, especially those two, is the deep ball. They do a really good job of putting their bodies in position to catch the deep ball. And then, man, Josh is just I really think a lot of that kid, and it's a great story. It's what college football is all about. Guys are earning scholarships and playing at that level. Man, he just has a knack. He's doing a great job too. Like on the special teams side of the ball, we're fixed to face two of the best returners. Their kickoff return guy is elite. He's one of the best in the country. And then Josh is their punt return guy, and man, he's really aggressive. He does a really good job catching the ball. He's a bigger kid, so he's harder to tackle whenever he gets going. And so those guys, I think the things that they do well is catch the deep ball.
You can tell that Aranda's calling the defensive shots. How would you describe him as a play caller? What makes him distinctive that way?
Well, I mean, he really is. He's one of the smartest coaches I've ever been around, and his defense is he does a good job of getting in the right call. He's very cerebral. You look at him, and I've seen him emotional as a head coach of getting the guys fired up, but there's not a lot of stuff that really rattles him whenever he's calling it. He's got a really good idea of what he wants, and he tries to put, I've kind of seen it both ways. He tries to put his guys in best position. I thought he did a great job against Colorado, where he really pressured their quarterback, but he also protected his secondary. He really is. I mean, whenever you look and you think over the last 15 years, Wisconsin, LSU, and now calling it now, I mean, his defenses are always some of the best in the country. I learned a lot, coaching under him, and learned a lot about, just different things whenever it comes to defense.
Hey, Coach, 4 of your 6 games right now have been by a possession.
Yeah.
And so how do you view that? Do you like the grittiness consistently of being able to find a way to be able to win those ball games?
Man, it's taken years off my life, I think, but and Debbie would probably say the difference. She wants a little bit more cushion, and, man, I like those type of games. I mean, don't get me wrong. We had a whole discussion Monday, so I gave them off Sunday whenever we played Arizona since we got back so late. But we're playing in these tight games because of lack of detail. Of just right there doing just specifically doing exactly what you're coached to do, being in the right place when you need to. Straining on the backside of plays where there's a lot more yardage in the run game that we're leaving out there. But at the end of the day, I think tough teams, whenever you're in those situations, they find ways to win. I think coaching staffs that are comfortable being in those situations find ways to win. It was a big part of our study. We've talked a lot about last February of just kind of like what we said. I mean, just find a way to win the game. And so I would love to win by 14 or 21 points on Saturday, but, also at the end of the day, I want to be in a dogfight in the fourth quarter and fight our way into a win, and that's kind of like we talk about. And I think they thought I was crazy whenever I came in North Texas and we were up so big, or the next week, I made a point in Arizona State, and I was like, man, I didn't have any fun last week. This is what's fun, and I guess as a coach of really trying to, as we used to say at Cedar Hill, earn your chicken fry. That's the time you get to earn your chicken fry whenever you're in games like that.
Both of you guys coming off of a bye now this week. You're 2-0 with Texas Tech when coming off of a bye. So what has been your mindset, I guess, coaching these guys to not let that momentum slip?
Yeah, that's I'm leaning hard on our leaders and our seniors with that. We made sure that the old guys, got what they needed to get. We also really tried to tap them whenever it comes to their conditioning and everything. And then we really tried to get the young guys to see who could come on and help us, at the back half of the season. And then, yesterday so it's usually, Tuesday whenever I do this, but I've got an extra day to do it. But, like our deal yesterday in our PowerPoint was no regrets. And then I put through like regrets versus no regrets. So it goes through a lot, like your body weight. It goes through how much you're studying your film, like how many MAs did you have on Tuesday's practice? Well, that you weren't locked in, in your meetings, and so you had those MAs. Just a lot of different things, holding each other accountable. Whenever you do that and you have that mindset, then I think we can keep our momentum going, and we need to start fast on Saturday to keep that momentum going and, take each quarter, which we call round, take each round, be where your feet are, and then just get in a dogfight in the fourth quarter.
Go Emily, then Cole.
So the weather on Saturday is looking a little questionable with the rain. How do you prepare your team for the possibility of a rainy game? What ball, mistakes happen, keeping this game clean and on your side?
Yeah, we've got you practice with, a wet ball. The biggest one is Barron doing that and practicing with that. And then, you lean on him anyway, but whenever it's rainy, then we've got a good run game, and so that's a good thing that, you lean on Taj and the offensive line. I think it's really important, that you're really locked in on the defense, because the advantage usually on a wet field goes to the offense from the standpoint of they know where they're going, the routes and everything like that. And so it's going to be interesting. I appreciate the cooler weather. I'm hoping the rain stays away, because that keeps the game, I think, cleaner. But we'll be prepared for it. We'll have some work this week with wet balls. And Kenny Perry he's just the opposite. He's like, it really doesn't matter if it's raining or if it's not. You still got to catch the ball. You still got to kick the ball. You still got to it's. And I said, yeah, but the ball's wet and it bounces different. It already bounces different anyway because of the shape of the ball. But, so we'll be prepared for it.
You talked during the bye week how getting healthy, maybe the biggest priority. Just looking at the injury report, looks like you've done that, especially in the secondary, which probably needed it most. How does that help you guys this week and on Saturday?
Yeah, it's big. We've got a couple guys, that the more Lux plays, I think somebody put out the points go down whenever he's in the game. I think it's like a 12-point difference whenever he actually plays. So it's going to be big to keep him healthy. I do really like, if we get Chappie back, which I do think we're trending that way, I do like that Devin played the way he played, because I want to play him more, and that's only going to make us faster as a defense. But it's huge, and that's our biggest, if you go through where we've got to make some big improvements, is we're playing 3 out of our next 4 opponents throw the ball and want to throw the ball more than they run the ball. Iowa State is a really good football team, and they're very balanced, and they're very good they're 211 yards rushing and then 230-something to 240-something passing. So they're really balanced. They do a great job. But, Baylor, when you look at their passing yards versus rushing yards, TCU's same. And so that secondary needs to be healthy. We got to get better at being physical with the receivers. We were better last week. We can't take a step back, and that comes with the secondary and the linebackers. And then we did hit the quarterback more than we have the whole season. We got to continue doing that.
Obviously, you mentioned Steve Linton quite a bit. You guys had a lot of praise and kind of expectation for him last year. Maybe didn't quite materialize, but when he decided, okay, I'm going to transfer, what was those conversations like with him? And he wound up you referred to him as your other school.
Yeah.
Did you help facilitate that in any way?
Well, just as far as advice, that's the thing. We've been really lucky. Everybody that's transferred has been a very man-to-man conversation. I really appreciate it. Steve came and sat down, and it was a great conversation. I hate that we're playing a really good version of him, on Saturday. I've seen that version. I think he's playing really well. But I'm also proud of him. You know, the thing with us, I mean, and all our players know it, and players that leave know it. These NFL scouts, they come into the building, you know, and they're going to ask, you know, what you thought about this guy and what you thought about this guy, you know. And I've had nothing but good things to say about Steve. You know, he did it the right way whenever he left. You know, I was hoping that he was going to go outside the conference without a doubt, and you know, and have a great year. But that's a good thing. Everybody that we've had leave, it's been, I think, doing it the right way, and you know, I tell all my guys, and same way with Steve, any of these guys, the guys that we're playing, you know, if they've been a part of my life, you know, they've helped me, I'm going to help them. You know, they're part of my family for the rest of their life, you know, and so we didn't have any animosity or anything like that whenever he left.
Joey, in what way, if any, did their offense change with Sawyer compared to Daquan Finn?
Yeah, it's kind of – it changed from the standpoint, you know, Sawyer, he's doing a really good job of running the offense from the standpoint of the passing game. The thing that's tough is both of them can really run the football from the quarterback position. And so I think whatever happened to where they made the coach, whether it was an injury or how they made the quarterback change, I think you could – you know, their offense has been more productive, especially in the passing game. You know, he's accurate. He throws a really good deep ball. They've got some deep ball threats. And it's also scary. You know, we haven't talked about him, but, you know, Monterey Baldwin had a good game against us last year. He can really run. I mean, he's hit 21-plus miles per hour. He's one of the fastest receivers in the nation. Got a young man, number 6, that, you know, transferred from Texas State. It's another really good slot. But Sawyer, I think, and then the other thing – just watching, and especially like BYU, he's obviously a great leader. Not saying that the other kid isn't. I haven't seen enough of the other kid, but just listening to the commentators through games, and then just seeing, like, that dude laid it all on the line against BYU. I mean, it was really impressive how much he did in that game to try to get them back in the game. You know, and I know it's going to be a big game for him. You know, it's going to be a big game for him. He's coming home. It's going to be a big game for Matt Jones. He's from Odessa Permian, you know, and so I'm excited to play him, but he's pretty impressed with the way he's playing.
Kind of following up on what you just touched on, all the Baylor ties on Texas Tech and all the Texas Tech and Lubbock ties on Baylor. How's the building any different this week compared to another game?
You know, I think year 1 and year 2, it was really different. You could feel it. I think there was a lot of tension and stress. I think there was a lot more probably last year because they beat us year 1. And we kind of, you know, for me, I know this sounds crazy, but, man, I just want to be 1-0 this week and be 4-0. Man, we have such a great opportunity. So whether it's Baylor or it's whoever's coming in here to play, man, we just got to find a way to win. I do think winning last year helped this building, and I'm sure winning year 1 helped that building, you know. But we're all really good friends. I mean, the people that I know on that staff, I'm a good friend with Jake Spavital. I think the world of him, their offensive coordinator, tight end coach. You know, he was at TCU forever. You know, as a high school coach, I spent a lot of time at TCU, you know, and you know, we got a legend coming back too, Lubbock Coronado's finest, their secondary coach or their corners coach with Kevin Curtis, and love him to death. I got to coach with him for 2 years, and so there's a lot of respect, but I think year 3 it's probably changed a little bit. I also think, you know, you're getting farther, and for us, you're getting farther and farther away from less players on that roster that we were key in recruiting. You know, I went to Jefferson High School in Georgia to get Garmin Randolph. I spent a lot of time in Odessa Permian, you know, trying to get Matt Jones, you know, to be a Baylor Bear. And so those 2 guys are kind of the old heads of that group, but you're getting farther and farther away from that. So I think it becomes more and more like any other week in the Big 12, you know, just trying to find a way to win. All right, thank y'all.
right, who wants to start?
Coach, what have you seen the biggest growth on your defense so far this year?
I think we're playing faster. I think we're tackling better. When you play football, you get better at it if you're practicing the right way, and I think our guys have really been practicing well since we've started camp. I think we're getting guys playing together, so the communication's been better. We haven't had as many new guys having to come in, and I think it's all come together where we're playing a lot more consistently. We got to continue to work on that.
Get players back from the injury, and how does this change your comfort level, especially getting more players back on the secondary?
I think anytime you've got more depth, guys who have played in games, who understand the flow of the game, who understand the momentum swings, who understand the down and distance, where's the ball, what do we expect, formation, all those kind of things. You can be better on defense. They anticipate things better, so they play faster. For when freshmen are playing, it's the first time for many of them to have seen any of this stuff. So the fact that we're getting more guys back, I expect us to continue to improve.
You've made improvements on getting the ball turned over more. What has gone into that to create these opportunities for the offense to score points?
Well, I think our guys are buying into what we're asking to do. We work, taking the ball away every practice. And, guys like Jacob Rodriguez made the huge play at the end of the last game, doing what we drill on a weekly basis. And it's not just going to make a tackle, but attacking the football. It's not been just Jake. We have other guys doing those types of things, going after the football. CJ certainly made a great play in the end zone right before the half. Was as big a play as it was in the game, because that ended up being a 10-point swing, between them scoring a touchdown and our offense doing a great job going down the field, and getting points. And, I think we're getting more pressure on quarterbacks. We're hitting the quarterback even when we're not sacking him, and those have a cumulative effect, where he's not getting the ball out when he wants to. So it's probably a combination of those things.
Coach, what's your overall impression of Sawyer Robertson and what he's been able to do for that Baylor offense?
Well, I think he's really helped open them up. They're throwing the ball much better now. He's got, I don't want to say surprising, but he doesn't appear that he's got great speed when he runs, but he's very elusive. And like some of the quarterbacks, like the ASU quarterback a few weeks ago, he's not afraid if the read's not there and there's an opening, he's going to go get it with his legs. And he's a very willing runner. He's a physical guy who's obviously tough because he's taking some shots and he gets right back on up. So he's a concern, with his legs, particularly on third down. But I think he does a nice job of moving in the pocket to extend plays, and that's where they're getting some of their bigger plays.
I know you're not game planning for him, but you coached him. What's the biggest thing that Steve Litton brings to the table and will attack the Tech offense this week?
Well, I'm hoping he has a bad cold on Saturday. Maybe he doesn't feel like playing, but I know he will. He's a tremendous athlete. A guy that's got a lot of God-given ability that he's worked hard to get better at. He's got a tremendous burst off an edge. He's got bend. He's a long, freaky guy who can turn the corner if you're into those kind of things, and most people are. And he can really put stress on a tackle.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned the big play by Jacob last week, but he had a great performance, and then Ben the week before that. But it seems like Bryce, John Curry, Dingle, you're getting a lot from that position.
Yeah, those guys are all getting reps. I think that's helped. We can keep guys fresh because we have quality depth. And we knew that going into this season, that we've got some guys that we can rotate and not feel there's a huge drop-off. And I think that's helped Ben and J-Rod really stay fresh. I think John Curry's going to keep getting better as he plays more football. He's still just a freshman, so he does some really good things, and then things that's okay. He's got to see this again. But the fact that all those guys have played well, and I think getting Mike in gives our defense a different speed, and he can do some different things, whether he's on an edge rushing or whether he's playing pass coverage or just playing traditional linebacker.
Coach McGuire talked about Devin Cromwell and the physical presence he brought. Moving over from corner, but I thought I remembered he cross-trained at both positions. How long did he cross-train, and what do you like about him as safety?
Yeah, no, he had cross-trained with us, I think going back to the spring a little bit, and I know during camp we had him playing both because, as you go through camp, you start, okay, hey, if this guy goes down, who do we need to, he's a guy that's played football in the past at a higher level than high school. And so he had played some safety at his previous school. Obviously, the communication terminology is a little bit different, but the fact that we cross-trained him, I think, really helped last week when we said, hey, we're going to go with you and let it be an open competition. And he won the starting job, and I thought he played really well, particularly in the physicality that he brought. There are some coverage things that we've still got to adjust, and he's got to see things, but I really was pleased with how he stepped up and really helped us last week.
Nathan and Jeff. You mentioned it a little bit, getting more pressure on the quarterback. Even if the sacks aren't there, how important is just making the quarterback feel the presence so they have to think a little bit more before?
Well, there's a couple things. One, most quarterbacks, when you get them off the spot and they're not throwing in rhythm, most quarterbacks, completion percentage goes way down. And so I think that was a big part of it. And then, hits become cumulative. They may have gotten the ball off. It may even be a completion, but when that quarterback's got to pick himself off the ground, that memory, is still in there that, hey, I got to get this ball out quicker. And I think the more you can do that, the more you make them uncomfortable. And then, we're getting better at disguising some things where he has to take another half second because I see one thing pre-snap, ball snapped, I look down at it, I look back up, and the picture's changed. Now he's got to process again. And it's one of the things that when you're young and just trying to get guys lined up and do the proper technique, you can't maybe do as much of, but we're getting to the point now where we're getting enough reps where guys are understanding.
Coach, you got a pretty good wide receiver group that you're facing this week. What do you tell your safeties and your corners about defending these three guys?
Well, you're going to have some big, long, physical receivers that can run. And I think Coach Spavital does a great job in mixing it up. There isn't just one threat like we saw last week where, hey, if we can control this guy, we're going to be okay. They've got about a handful of guys, including the tight end, who are all receiving threats for them and are guys that can run, guys that can make contested catches. If you get them in too many one-on-one situations, they're going to win their share of them. And, it's obviously a concern because you can't just double the one guy.
And it feels like that you've been able to be more aggressive as a play caller when it comes to, I don't want to say calling up a blitz, but definitely being able to attack the offensive line a bit better. What has led you to that confidence other than just getting some guys healthy and the guys learning the defense?
Well, I think it's a combination of getting the guys back. When you play with, younger players, as a play caller, you got to think, hey, are we better off playing, a little bit more generic defense, but guys know what to do and play hard because they're confident, or do you give them some more things to put on their plate? And early in the season, we tried to keep things the way we had, and for some guys, it was a little too much. And so we dialed some things back and, pour into, hey, what are we doing well? What kind of our guys do well? Let's keep repping that while still continuing to push forward your defense, through practice and get to the point where, hey, these guys can handle these calls now, and then just, week by week add to that. No, come on now.
Tim, you had some instances last year where some of your young guys played their 4 games and stayed in their red shirt, like John Curry and Mike Dingle and whatnot. Is there any freshmen this year that behind the scenes are progressing toward getting on the field in that manner?
Yeah, we
maybe you don't, with your depth, maybe you don't need true freshmen as much this year?
I think secondary-wise is probably where we're seeing maybe the greatest potential need. Looking at guys, like Malik Scara and Peyton Morgan, giving those guys a look at safety to see if they're ready. The big challenge that, we're telling them is, hey, you need to show us on special teams that you're ready to handle reps, to earn the reps on scrimmage reps. And the more we see that, Malik had gotten hurt during camp, and so he was a little bit behind. Peyton's done some good things, but we got to see it more consistent from him. I think those two guys, Oliver Miles has looked good at practice, and so he may get a look as well.
Freshman edge guys, how are they progressing?
I think they're doing well. Charles and Eddie, the Twin Tower guys from Pearland, are progressing. But again, they haven't played scrimmage snaps. They've got some seasoning still yet to go. And then Chetta Feely just got back. He had an injury during the summer that he's starting to rep and get better. So I think all three of those guys are still a little bit away. Eddie might be the closest. I mean, he's a 6'5", 6'6" guy who's probably weighing 270 right now, and we think he's got a really bright future, as soon as he starts learning the package a little bit better so that he can be as productive as I think he's going to be.
What's Ashton Hampton looking like?
Funny you mentioned him. I apologize that I forgot. He's really practiced well the last couple weeks. He's a guy that can really run. He's got length. I hesitate sometimes because he is thin. You look at him and he makes Macho look like he's a big thick guy. But he's a guy that is really competitive. He's got the length you're looking for, and he was going to be a next up guy for us. And so he's got to continue to progress and show us on teams that he can do some things, and he's been doing that at practice.
Good. All right, thank you, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
How has the offense improved on turning turnovers to turnover points?
Yeah, we're doing a really good job. That's one thing that, over the last week, just looking at some self-scout stuff, one thing we've done a really good job of, man. So when our defense is creating those turnovers like they've been doing those last few games, we've turned them into points. I want to say maybe the last couple games we've 59 points over turnovers, something like that, maybe, I believe. And so clearly anytime you can swing a game with big points like that after turnovers, it's huge. And so that's one area I've been really proud of these first 6 games.
Three things that you have seen the biggest improvement from your offensive line.
Yeah, I think just for the most part in our one-on-one matchups in pass pro, we've done a pretty good job. Physicality in the run game. Now we've got a strain to finish on the backside of some runs sometimes because, Taj Brooks is kind of a different runner, and that ball can hit in a lot of different gaps, and so just straining to finish. Those are 2 things, man. I think just, taking ownership, too, of what they're trying to do, because we're pretty multiple offensively right now. We're doing a good job running it and doing a good job passing it at the same time. So just understanding where we're at and trying to be good, whether it's, max protection pass, 5-man pass pro, or running the football with those guys back there. I think they've just taken ownership of trying to do their job.
You found ways to win with games where you've had to pass, games where you had to run, games you had to be balanced. What is the strength of this offense that you can find the ways to win no matter what needs to come out each week?
Yeah, again, I think it comes down to just unselfish football players, that it doesn't matter, how we got to win. Last 2 weeks ago it's pretty ugly, but we found a way to win. At the end of the day, that's really all that matters. And we were up and down offensively in that game and had a couple of things that happened that if you had asked me before the game, if this happens, will you win? I probably would have told you no. But again, man, our kids just keep fighting and keep battling, and they're bought into what we're doing, and the culture we have here is great. And I think that's what's made us be able to finish these games that, in the years past we haven't been able to.
Coach, how do you think you can attack this Baylor defense? A lot of middle field open, too high. They still stop the run pretty well, though, with the numbers advantage you get with closed. I guess just what do you think about them overall? And I guess is there anything game plan specific that you've seen this week going into it?
Yeah, I mean, overall thoughts, I think they have really good defensive personnel. I mean, clearly with Coach Aranda calling it, they're coached at an extremely high level. One of the best in the business, been doing it for a really long time. Does a really good adapting, I think, in game and finding weaknesses that you're doing and finding things that we're going to be trying to do, and he tries to exploit those as you go. But I think first and foremost, just personnel-wise, they're one of the more talented teams we faced. I do believe that. You know, I mean, I think their 2-4 record doesn't speak to the team that they have. I think they are super close to being at least 4-2 at the worst. And you know, schematically, I mean, again, it's going to start up front with our O-line and 28, trying to get that run game going. You know, I mean, if they're going to play the too high stuff that they like to mainly play, we've got to do that, and we've got to be able to pick on some of those guys in the RPO game like we do. And again, man, we gotta be able to take some shots at some times too and hit some big plays. You know, kind of like we had a couple weeks ago with Caleb Douglas, man, came down with some big throws late and helped do some really good stuff. So when we have those one-on-ones, Barron needs to attack those scenarios. And but again, it's going to start up front, being physical in the run game and attacking that too high defense.
The run game progressed throughout the year, because it seems like you guys have kind of been very multiple in the schemes that you guys thrown at teams, and obviously it's kind of been up and down with the offensive line, you know, straining at the end like coaches mentioned, but I guess overall, and then obviously have Taj too.
Yeah, I mean overall, I think we could even probably have another 30-40 yards per game if you look at some of those strain plays that we've been talking about the last few weeks. But man, we're doing a good job, man. You know, our staff's coming up with a great run plan every week, trying to find ways that we can exploit defenses and find their weaknesses. And I mean, you got 28 back there, so there's some times where there's not a whole lot open, and he can go get you 3 to 4 yards, you know, and those are positive plays for us. So, and again, you know, I think Barron's done a good job at times finding some light boxes when we're in some certain scenarios and checked a couple plays here and there, and it's just been good, you know. And again, I think that's the thing where we're better this year than we've been, is we are really able to run the ball at a high level, but also throw the ball at a high level as well.
Yeah, I'm curious, just following up on that, how has that balance helped you as a play caller? And have you noticed opposing defenses change the way they play against you compared to like the last 2 years?
No, I mean, I'd say as far as that last part goes, people have kind of been, for the most part, playing what they are, you know, especially, you know, that, you know, the ACU, the North Texas and Cincinnati in that 3 high structure. I mean, usually when you play those guys, they're going to stick pretty true to what they are. And then, you know, Washington State, that'd be the one game where I do think they adapted, you know, whenever they found out 28 wasn't playing, because they were more of a 1 high blitz team, and they played a little bit more 2 high against us when that happened. But, you know, you look at Arizona State and Arizona, I mean, they're a, you know, 8-man front, 1 high type defense. That's just kind of what they've hung their hat on. And but going back to the first part of that, it helps me tremendously. I mean, just being able to be multiple and not feel like we've got to be, because, you know, it's in my nature to want to throw the football. That's just who I am at the core. But it's kind of been funny, you know. Kenny Perry has been joking with me all season that I'm the calmest he's ever seen me, and I'm not losing my mind on the sidelines as much as I did in the past and some of those things. And I think a lot of that just goes down to just more comfortability with who we've got out there, and being able to lean on that run game even more so when we need to. And you know, other thing for me, I mean, I can tell you just from a personal standpoint, having a healthy quarterback doesn't hurt either, you know. And so just all that kind of combined in one, I think, you know, helped me tremendously. And again, I think our staff's doing a good job coming up with a game plan each week, and our guys are executing at a pretty high level.
Yeah, speaking of healthy quarterback, halfway through the season, how do you feel like Barron's done all the way as a thrower, as a leader, and then also at the line of scrimmage, getting into the right play?
Yeah, I'm extremely proud of him. I mean, there's always going to be some of those things. You know, I'd be lying if I didn't want a little bit higher completion percentage from him. But man, you're talking 2 interceptions in 6 games. Extremely proud of that. And I think if you're asking me my opinion, the biggest difference overall from last year to this year is, man, we're protecting the football at a pretty high level, especially at the quarterback position. And so that translates to winning football games, you know. And so I'm extremely happy with that. Leadership is, I couldn't be more proud, man. And he gets the guys going. No matter what, no matter where we're at, he's juiced up on the sidelines, rooting the defense on, going up and down, telling the receivers, hey, I'm coming back to you here. Hey, O-line, hey, I got you. We're good here. Extremely fired up there for him and what he's been able to do. And he's still got a lot of room to improve. Like I said, I'd like to see that completion percentage go up. But, man, overall, with where we're sitting right now, I'm pretty proud of him.
I noticed a lot of young guys on the offensive line showing up in the depth chart. Had a couple of highly rated offensive line recruiting classes. I'm just curious, ballpark, when do you feel like that's going to start showing up on game days?
Yeah, I'm a little bit old school when it comes to that room. Offensive linemen, in my opinion, shouldn't have to play a whole lot of snaps until their redshirt sophomore year. I'm a little more old school when it comes to that. You're talking about an 18-year-old kid going out there versus possibly a 23, in today's day and age, 24-year-old grown man that's been in college weight room for 6 years. And to me, that's the one room that you really need a lot of development nutritionally and in the weight room. But, man, we do have some of these guys that, you're seeing some of these redshirt freshmen and some of these things, and even some true freshmen popping up on some of these things that we're really, really high on, that we think are going to be huge assets to this football program in the future. I really like where the youth in that room is and where those guys are climbing. But and again, I'm not saying you won't see those guys before that, but if you had to ask me my preference, I prefer those guys to be redshirt sophomores before they're out there, starting full time, for a full season.
Barron kind of talked about this last week, but Caleb Douglas getting those big chunk plays, especially in key situations like that. He kind of mentioned that it kind of boosted Caleb's confidence a little bit. How important is it that not to force spreading it around, but to be able to spread it around so everybody is kind of locked in and, oh, this could come to me at any moment?
Yeah, I think each play call, too, these guys are sharp football players, so they kind of understand, like, hey, I'm progression 1 on this play, or hey, I'm progression 2 on this play. The big catch that Caleb caught right before halftime that ended up getting us down there to that field goal. He was read number 1. We got the matchup we wanted. We took the matchup, and he made a play. And then late in the game when he caught the other big one, we just ran a 4 verts scheme, and he was kind of the solo guy to the field by himself. We went formation, the boundary on that, and we had a one-on-one matchup again, and that's what we call an alert in this system. And Barron alerted it like he's supposed to do and went there, and again, he made a great play. So as far as spreading the ball around, again, it's going to kind of differ weekly, on what they're doing schematically. Again, this week they're playing more 2-high stuff, so you may see more stuff go to the slot, or if they start playing more cover 1 type stuff, you may see the ball go more outside. So, but again, we're still for the most part a progression-based offense as well, and so we've got to go through reads and some of that stuff to get to the open guy. But as far as spreading around the touches and some of those things, each week we have certain plays designed for certain guys, and then we'll kind of continue that. And then, trusting the quarterback to do his job and go through those reads to get those guys the ball.
Go ahead, Don.
Zach, you mentioned a moment ago, you said you'd like to see Barron's completion percentage improve. At the same time, you've had quite a few dropped passes.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding addressing drop passes with receivers, is that something that you feel like they know I don't have to harp on this, don't want them to get too much in their heads about it, or how do you address it on Sunday and then Tuesday and Wednesday?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, man. Because we've had a lot of drops this year, and man, it's just, I'll be honest, it's kind of uncharacteristic of those guys, and from what we've seen through camps and throughout the week in practice, some of those things. And those guys know. I laugh at we've got a running joke that Coach Juice, anytime the ball's in the air, he screams eyes. Because if you go back and you really watch these guys, a lot of it is they're trying to make something happen before they catch the football. So you gotta watch that ball all the way into the tuck. Catch it with your eyes before you catch it with your hands. It's kind of the mantra there. So we just got to get those guys to keep concentrating on the football, seeing it all the way to the tuck before you're trying to make a move. Some of these things are those 3rd and 6 type calls or something where they're catching the ball up 5 yards, and so they want to try to make that move to get upfield before they have the ball secured. And those are just things that we work on it every day. This offense, man, that's what we do. Individual drills for quarterbacks and receivers. There's not a whole lot of true individual. We're running routes and we're playing catch out there. So it's something we do on a daily basis. And again, it's disheartening that we have the amount of drops that we've had. But again, I have faith in those guys that we're going to turn that around.
Thank you, everybody.